And the light's still in the way.
It looks real nice.
Real nice, Clark.
So when it comes to, setting up a stealthy shelter, if you weren't able to find a natural shelter or an opportunistic or an opportunity shelter, then you may have to set up a shelter on your own. And the reason I choose that poncho as part of my bug out bag is because it's versatile. I can use it while it's raining and I'm mobile. It will cover myself, cover my gear, and I can also use it to set up a number of different poncho shelter configurations. And using that rapid ridgeline and that poncho and the rest of my shelter kit, I want to show you how to do that really quick. When it comes to stealthy shelters though, there is an acronym that I want you to keep in mind, all right? This isn't something that you're going to make really large to draw a lot of attention to yourself, all right? You need to remember the acronym BLISS, B-L-I-S-S. That stands for blend. It needs to blend with the surroundings. L stands for low silhouette. You need to keep that knee level or lower, and that just kind of reduces the signature, reduces your visibility. That's one of the reasons I don't use a hammock system, because a hammock system is typically too high of a profile for me and it violates the bliss principle. I stands for irregular shape, and irregular shapes could be very difficult to do because you have the straight lines on a poncho and the ridge line. So it's difficult to come up with an irregular shape, which is why I think that natural shelters are a better choice, obviously, when you have them. But when you don't, what you can do is you set it up and then you break up the outline by using natural vegetation from the surrounding area, tree branches, what have you, to break that up, all right? The first S stands for small, all right? The comfort is not a requirement for bug out. It needs to be small enough, again, so you don't increase your signature and make it such a large signature that people can see it from a great distance. So keep it small. And the last S stands for secluded, all right? Secluded, in a secluded area. You obviously don't want to set up near a danger area, which is any place that you can be observed or receive enemy fire from, or receive fire from. It's the military coming out at me, receiving enemy fire, but receiving fire. So you want to stay away from that. It needs to be secluded. So when you're making your shelter and you're thinking about shelters for bug out, that's the acronym I want you to remember, BLISS, B-L-I-S-S. Whenever you're using a poncho, to make a shelter, you have to understand that it has a hood, all right? And you need to close that hood off to really make it watertight so that you don't get rained on. So when you're going from, using this as a poncho as it's designed, to keep you dry, to using it as a shelter, you need to actually rig the hood in such a way that it no longer allows, you don't have that big hole where your head would go. All right, so the way that I do that is very simple. I just take the actual lanyard that's on there. All I do is twist that hood up and then gooseneck it over. Bend it back over on itself a couple of times, and then use that cordage to wrap around really tight and then tie that off so it stays. All right, I don't want to put a knot in it because I may need to use it as a regular poncho also, and I want to be able to get that off rather quickly. But that twisting action, along with the double gooseneck where you're folding it over and then folding it over again and then tying all that up together, will make a nice watertight poncho seal. Otherwise it goes up basically like any other tarp would. You just created a tarp, all right? So once you have that, we're going to use the rapid ridgeline system, and I'm going to establish a ridgeline from one tree to another, okay? And I may put this a little bit higher. I'll put it about waist level just so you can see what I'm doing a little better, but you would want this no higher than knee level. All right, so with the rapid ridgeline, I've got my hank. It's been bouncing around in my bug out bag the whole time, but this will be knot free. I put my finger or my thumb inside the loop and just pull it out. Once I get to the Prusix, I can let go of this, come around the tree. I'm going to do it kind of high so you can see what I'm doing. And what I'm going to do is, from here, I'm going to push a bite through there. I'm going to take one of my tent stakes or toggle, and I'm going to put it inside that bite so that when I pull this tight, it actually stays right there. But this is also a quick release, all right? Make sure that your Prusik loop is in front. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get this tight real quick because I need to show you again how to get those Prusik loops on there. All right, pull this straight across. Once you get to this side, you're going to do a quick trucker's hitch so you can get rid of that. Come around the tree. And then kind of determine how much stretch you're going to have. Usually paracord will stretch about 25 feet. So I want to kind of go about a third of the way here. That's about a third. And what I'm going to do is just put a loop in the line. And I'm going to flip that loop over and pull a bite. So just like we started the bowline, except we just tighten it down. All right, so we have a fixed loop. And if you have another preference for a fixed loop that you want to use, you could do that. You could do a number of different loops here. That's just an overhand slip. That gives me a fixed loop. I'm going to come around the tree. I'm going to take my line and I'm going to go back through this loop I created. Got caught up right there. Once I get this set up, I'll show you what I've got going here. So again, I've got my kind of my tractor knot, my mule knot, which is pulling tension against that side. And I've got a loop. This goes around the tree, back through the loop, and when I turn it back this way and I pull this way, this gives me a mechanical advantage to tighten this ridge line. So I'm going to pull that tight. And then what I like to do is go through that loop a second time. And that creates a round turn. I've gone through that loop a second time. Pull it tight. Oh, I was binding on itself already. There we go. Pull it tight. And as that pulls tight, it takes the tension out of here and locks on itself, except for that time. Takes the tension out of here and locks on itself. Then from here, simply close that off with a quick release. Again, everything that I'm doing has a quick release on it because I want to be able to take this down quickly. So that half hitch, that kind of locking half hitch on a bite right there, secures this to there. And this is quite a bit higher than you normally want it, but I want you to be able to see the knots. Take the excess, get it out of your way. And kind of keep an eye where that actual loop is because we're going to incorporate that into our shelter. Now, I can take one grommet of my poncho. I'm actually going to move this lower now because I want to show you. Actually, I'll take that all the way down. I want to move this lower for you so I can show you what size it should be now that you've kind of seen the knots. So I'll loosen that real quick. Come down to about knee height. That's about right. Give myself a little slack here. Probably come all the way out. Come down to about knee height. Put my quick release back in. Push that right against the tree. There we go. And I'll tighten this back up. Again, I've got that loop. That loop's going to be incorporated into the next step, but I want to get this cordage managed so that it doesn't get tangled up like this. There we go. I take my poncho over the top of that ridge line. You could also do it to where the poncho's underneath. If you're concerned about water running down the line and getting inside your shelter, then you could put it completely underneath so it just runs down the line and drips on the top. But I just haven't seen or had enough of an issue by putting it directly over it to worry about it. Now this loop that was formed by that quick release is going to be incorporated into the shelter, because this first grommet, this middle grommet here, I'm going to place that bite right through that grommet. Then I'm going to take a second stake, go through that, and then this excess I'm actually going to pull down until that's tight and holds it and locks it in place. Now I'm going to come to the other side where I've got my Prusik loop, and again, normally I have 2 to 3 Prusik loops on here, but for this particular shelter configuration I actually only need 1. So I'm going to find that center grommet. I have this fixed loop, much like I did on that other side, to place through that grommet. Take another tent stake, run it through that loop. And now for this one, because it's a Prusik knot, this Prusik knot is designed to slide along this ridge line and lock. So I'm going to pull this tight, and it locks right there. And that keeps it nice and tight. Now all I have to do is stake out the 4 corners with my remaining stakes, and we will be straight. I'm actually going to switch out this one with a good wooden toggle to hold it in place, because I need 1 more tent stake. Any of these toggled locations, like here, here, or here, you can just use the stick, but if you have the stakes, it's convenient, especially when you're setting it up. I'll pull these corners out, and I've looped some bank line right through the corners, and those are just a lark's head, just like you tied a simple Prusik, just went through 1 time, but this is a lark's head because it only has 2 parallel wraps and the cross locking bar. I'll pull 1 corner tight, stake it into the ground, get it in there pretty good. Then we're going to go to the opposing corner. With another stake. I've already got my loops tied. A couple of rocks here in Arkansas. Then I'll stake off the other 2 here. This is fairly good to go as is. I've got a camouflage pattern that kind of blends pretty well. It doesn't have a regular shape, but I can bring some branches, some tree branches up around here to kind of break up the shape. It's definitely a low silhouette, so knee high or better. So all I really have to do is crawl inside there, pull my gear in, and I'll be pretty well protected in that. And it's small, and we're in a secluded location. So I'm pretty comfortable with it this way, but another thing that you can do if you want to take the time to do so, to make it just a little more comfy, is to kind of give yourself some height here. So what you could do is take some of your bank line. I've got some in here. And basically with your bank line, just make another ridge line above, or if you have an overhanging branch that you could tie this to and pull it up, you could do that. But since we don't have that, we'll just tie some bank line up. Come around. Actually, let me get a bowline in here real quick. Find me a toggle. That's a pretty big toggle. Come around the tree. Push a bite through there. Toggle the bite. And that is a toggled running bowline. Bring that all the way down to the other side. Understanding this is going to stretch, I'm going to put my loop, continue flipping that loop over to create a round turn. Loop, bite through. Now we've got the loop, come around the tree, come through that loop. I like to go through that loop twice. Pull some tension on that. That's going to tighten this line up nicely. And then finish that off with a half hitch on a quick release to hold it. Now this just gives me something extra, a little extra space, but it does increase your silhouette a little bit. So everything's kind of a trade-off. But now I can just take a line, another piece of bank line, run another bowline, make another running bowline around this to capture the hood. And then I can use that. There we go. And you can tie a prusik up here if you want. You can tie any knot you want, really, so long as it holds that tension for you. And that gives you a little more room on the inside, a little more comfortable, but again, you know, don't get crazy with it and have it way up above your waist. You want to have that low silhouette as best as possible. All right, so from there, the only thing I would do to this otherwise is, you know, drag some deadfall, some tree branches, some foliage around the area and kind of cover that up and kind of break up that shape so that I can keep to the bliss principle as best I can. All right, blend with the surroundings, low silhouette, irregular shape, small and secluded. That's what I'm looking for a shelter if I have to set one up. Make sure I don't get all up. That's poison ivy. Well, I got to come out the shelter.